You know, in the car business, just one tiny missing part can bring a whole factory to a grinding halt. We're talking millions of dollars lost per hour. It's a total logistical nightmare. So what if AI could actually predict the future and stop this from happening? Well, a 2020 study by Chon and Jung looked into exactly that. And trust me, what they found is a real game changer.
Okay, so let's put ourselves in the shoes of a top-tier auto parts supplier for a second. Imagine your biggest client is one of the huge car manufacturers, and they need a constant, non-stop stream of your parts. The biggest challenge you face every single day is figuring out how many parts they're going to need. Get it right, everything's great. But if you get it wrong, oh boy, the consequences are massive.
Yeah, it's this incredibly delicate balancing act, a real tightrope walk. If you underproduce, you could literally shut down your client's entire assembly line. We're talking huge financial penalties and a reputation that's just toast. But if you overproduce, all your money is just tied up in parts, sitting there gathering dust in some warehouse. So either way you slice it, you lose. It's a total catch-22.
And that's exactly why the researchers say that getting this forecast right isn't just a good idea, it's compulsory. It's basically a requirement to even stay in business. So that leads us to the billion-dollar question, right? How can these suppliers get better at predicting the future and finally escape this super expensive problem?
So to try and solve this puzzle, companies have always relied on what are called forecasting models. For decades, really, they've been using these old-school statistical methods to look at past data. But, everyone's always looking for that competitive edge, which has pushed them to look for newer, more powerful tools. And that brings us right to the heart of the experiment in this study.
The basic idea here is something called demand forecasting. It's pretty straightforward. You use data from the past to make an educated guess about what you'll need in the future. But just looking at history has its limits, right? It doesn't always account for all the other stuff going on, all the complex, kind of random factors. And that's exactly why this study decided to test a totally new approach.
So the study set up this awesome head-to-head competition. In one corner, you've got the classic method, ARIMA. Now that stands for Autoregressive Integrated Moving Average, which is a mouthful, I know. Just think of it as the old-school champ that predicts the future by only looking at past sales. Then, in the other corner, you have the AI challenger, NARX. The key difference? NARX can look at a whole bunch of other factors to make a way smarter prediction.
So what's the secret sauce that makes this NARX model so much smarter? Well, it's pretty simple. It just looks at more data, a lot more. It's not just looking at old sales numbers, it's also looking at the manufacturer's early provisional orders, and it even knows when the factory is going to be shut down for holidays. Think of it like a weather forecast. ARIMA is like just looking at yesterday's temperature to predict today's weather. But NARX, it's looking at the temperature and the humidity and the barometric pressure. You're just going to get a much better forecast, right?
Okay, so the theory sounds great, but a good theory is one thing. Proof is something else entirely. To really find out which model was better, the researchers set up a direct, no-holds-barred competition using real, messy data from an actual supplier.
And the way they did it was super straightforward, just a clean, four-step process. First, they collected a whole year's worth of data from a real supplier. Step 2, they split that data up for training the models and then testing them later. Then, step 3, they built and trained both models. They basically taught ARIMA and NARX what to look for. And finally, step 4, they compared their performance to see which one was more accurate, simple, and effective.
Now, a really key part of this whole thing was how they used the data. They took a big chunk, 70%, to train the models. This is where the AI gets to learn all the historical patterns. The rest of the data was kept separate. It was the test set. Brand new data the models had never seen before. Think of it like the final exam. This is how you make sure the test is fair and you're actually measuring how good the models are at predicting, not just remembering.
All right, so the models are trained, the test data is ready. It was time for the moment of truth. After all that work, which one was going to come out on top? The classic method or the new AI challenger? Let's dive into the results.
So the way they measured success was by looking at the error rate, which is basically a score of how far off the predictions were. So obviously a lower score is better. And the result? It wasn't even close. The NARX model, the AI-powered one, had a way lower error rate than ARIMA. It was just flat out more accurate.
And if we dig into the numbers a little bit, NARX showed it was better right from the get-go. Just during the training phase while it was still learning, it was already 18% more accurate than the old-school model. That tells you it was just better at spotting the patterns in the data.
But here's the real kicker. The true test is predicting stuff you've never seen before, right?
Well, when they put it up against that new, unseen test data, the NARX model was still 15% more accurate. And this right here is the most important takeaway. It proves the AI didn't just memorize the past, it actually developed a genuinely better ability to forecast the future.
Okay, so a 15% improvement in accuracy? That sounds pretty good on paper, right? But what does that actually mean for a real factory, on a real factory floor? Well, in the world of high-volume manufacturing, a percentage like that translates into an absolutely massive, real-world impact.
You see, a smarter forecast creates this incredible domino effect. It immediately leads to better planning, which means you're not wasting a ton of money storing extra parts you don't need. It helps prevent those dreaded part shortages, the ones that bring entire production lines to a screeching halt. And ultimately, it just makes the whole supply chain more efficient, more stable, and a heck of a lot more resilient.
So at the end of the day, that 15%, it's not just some abstract number on a spreadsheet. For a real auto supplier, that's the difference between a smooth, profitable year and a catastrophic shutdown that could cost them a fortune. It literally means millions of dollars saved, not just on inventory, but by preventing those absolutely devastating production delays. That right there is the real-world power of smarter AI.
I mean, what this study really proves is that AI can bring a completely new level of precision to one of the most complicated supply chains on the entire planet. And it leaves us with a really fascinating question, doesn't it? If AI can perfect the automotive supply chain, what industry is it going to transform next? Thanks so much for joining us for this explainer.